I believe we are live. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome to the Prospero.ai stock market live streams. We have a great list of topics to discuss today. We have some big earnings set to take place at the end of today, right after this live stream is over. We have the markets all in the red as of right now across the board. The most down on the day today is the Russell, down just over 1%. QQQ, SPY, Dow Jones, all down between 0.5% and 0.75%. So, slight red day, not too much crazy volatility, although the VIX is up 6% now on the day, off of the day highs. It peaked at around 28 at around 10 a.m., and now it's at 25.80. So, VIX slightly lower. I see we have a bunch of people joining the stream now. Welcome, welcome. Hit that like button if you enjoy these streams and you are excited for the topics that we are going to get into here. Let me update everybody on the SPY QQQ net option sentiment in Prospero, and then we will go through some of the topics we are going to be discussing. So currently looking at the SPY, it is now at 35. So below the key level of 40, which is our bull bear line for both indexes right now. So SPY, which peaked at over 50 just a few days ago, has now been softening up, and officially crossed below the bull line. Now let's take a look at the QQQ. QQQ is at 41. So hanging just above the bull bear line. Also softening up though. I think the QQQ went as high as, yes, it also hit 50 in recent days, but it's now been pulling back, softening. So something to keep in mind. Obviously, we're going to go over in the beginning of today's stream the weak data we got today about the GDP, first negative number in a long time. We also got some pretty underperforming payroll numbers. So we're going to go through both of those pieces of data that we got. Maybe that's affecting why we're seeing some softening in the net options sentiment today. Then we're going to go over some stocks that have had poor earnings reactions recently. Some that come to my mind are Snapchat, First Solar, and Starbucks. As always, if you guys want to add any companies to that list, maybe that you're holding in your own portfolio that have had pretty negative earnings, let us know in the chat, and we will also bring them up when we get to that topic. Or even if you want to hear about some good earnings, maybe you also had in your portfolio. But we're going to go through some that have already reported. Then we're also going to go to the two big ones that are set to take place after the bell today, Meta and Microsoft. Highlight those, what we're expecting. Satya Nadella's made some interesting comments about AI, so we'll bring those up as well. But yeah, it's sure to be a fun day around 405, 410, whenever those numbers are released. Maybe the QQQ and SPY net option sentiment will fully give back all of these the bullish momentum that they've had recently, or climb back up towards the highs of where they were. I feel like right now we're kind of in the middle. We can't really get a good sense of direction. So maybe we'll be better. We'll be able to tell better after today's reports. Then we're going to highlight the three stocks that performed the best in Trump's first 100 days of office. And these three companies are very, very, very different. So it's interesting that, they've been able to outperform. I don't want to give them away right now. So hopefully you guys stick around until we actually get into it, and your curiosity makes you stay in here. But if you have any guesses right now, let us know in the chat. Then one of the favorites on the stream, and one of the favorites in the Prospero signals a while ago now, probably almost a year ago, SMCI. They came out and pre-announced negatively last night. Hey, George, welcome to the stream today. So we're going to talk about SMCI. They went down a lot when that happened yesterday. I think as much as 20% right away, and a lot of other chip stocks followed them. So we'll get into the chip space, and that'll take us right into our next topic, which is NVIDIA. Jensen Huang had some comments. If you were here on Monday, we talked about how Huawei announced that they're making a very competitive AI chip for NVIDIA. And obviously there's all these chip restrictions and exports and such weighing on their business. So we'll get into those Jensen Huang comments. His words weigh heavy on the market. And last but not least, before we go into the model portfolio at the very end of the stream, we'll cover two updates for Google and their partnerships that they're announcing for Waymo and Gemini. So both of their more growthy aspects of their business we will highlight. But starting today, George, we got some negative data released this morning. So Q1 GDP came in at negative 0.3%, missing expectations of the complete reverse, 0.3% growth. And it was the first negative read since Q1 of 2022. And then on top of that, we also got private payroll missing. It came in at 62,000 versus 120,000 expected. And also, there was 147,000 reported of growth in March just a month ago, so 80,000 less than that. So, two bits of weakness. We just checked in on the SPY QQQ net option sentiment. SPY is now officially below the 40 bull line at 35. QQQ just hanging on, still at 41, although they both kind of pulled back a bit in recent days. So, how are you feeling on the market action today? Bullish, bearish?
Yeah, I mean, color me confused. Oh, am I on like a delay?
I think you're good.
Oh, I feel a little delayed, but if anybody else sees that I'm on a delay, that's fine. Um, I think I'm just very confused. Like I saw the news, I saw the way the market opened. I thought we were headed for like another 4 or 5% down day. And I prepared for that. I think it still all worked out, like because like one of my, Pterodine, I think was pretty decent for me as a short. Um, but yeah, I am very like weirded out by the market for lack of a better term because like that big of a miss on GDP like should have alone, really, I think provided a bigger shock to the market. I mean, I did see a story earlier today again that talked about how much institutions were shorting the market. Um, so I mean, I'm just wondering how much of this is like again, like maybe a desire, maybe some more in retail and then some institutions just basically preparing to swing trade this. Um, it definitely seems like a much stronger, and I've talked about this, it definitely seems like a much stronger sentiment in retail that people want the market to go up and they want to believe good things are coming. But that GDP reading is like pretty shocking, especially considered like not much of the actual impact of the tariffs are embedded in that yet, right? Because we're talking about like Q1 and Q1 that's barely impacted. Like really just like all we're talking about there is like maybe like the start of some of the impacts. Maybe we start to see some of some more conservative spending among companies, worried that more trouble is coming. Like to me, that's the biggest thing that this signals, some of that consumer confidence. Maybe resulting in, less short-term demand that people that are producing things on kind of quicker timelines are starting to respond to, right? Because you always have to differentiate like consumer confidence being lower doesn't necessarily mean less, goods are being produced. Um, so yeah, I'm I'm pretty nervous about especially what this means for Q2 when I do think, even if, in the bull case we do have like a lot of these deals sorted out by the end of Q2, we're definitely going to see the impact and yeah, I for the life of me I can't figure out why the market is reacting this way unless this is another situation where some people know that there's imminent good news coming.
So the market is a tug of war battles of bulls and bears, right? So I'm just speaking. I'm not actually saying that. I'm just posing this to you. So um, I feel like right now is kind of a period where like both bulls and bears can kind of be unhappy or not satisfied with what's the market's showing, and I think the signals that we're seeing for net option sentiment might even like support that theory because it's like they are barely bullish right now, like just and the SPY is actually even under our bull line and they're softening up, but they're not quite bearish enough where you could be convinced that way. They're not bullish enough where you could be convinced the other way. So you think it's kind of we're just waiting. Maybe the market's positioning before earnings and it wants to see those for such big companies that are about to come through. We're going to get into those more in detail later on. But do you think right now is kind of like bulls and bears are both unhappy with how their trades might be playing out the last day or two?
Yeah, I mean the port the way net option sentiment is reacting today is more of the behavior you traditionally see when people are coming more bearish, right? Kind of like a gradual decline throughout the day, right? But it's still pretty high. I don't know if I don't know if it's the case that people are happy or not. I mean, there's I've actually heard um there's a decent number of hedge funds that are just having like record like blowout years. Um, some say because some are getting wind of things earlier. And it's not necessarily all hedge funds, but I've heard I've heard some shocking return numbers on certain ones. I'm not going to say which ones because I don't want to betray the confidence of the people that told me in confidence. But yeah, it's I think some people are very happy about this market because what we say is volatility is profitability for hedge funds, especially if you know what you're doing. And then if you throw in the fact that like it definitely looks like there's bets, like huge bets being made before these news events are happening, or in kind of a gradual way before, where it seems like more and more people are getting wind of it before the actual announcement. That's kind of what the options markets are indicating, what we've seen. um, I think it's I think it's definitely I think there's some people that probably aren't liking this market, but I think on the institutional side, a lot of people seem to be loving it, but they're not necessarily confident in it and they're not necessarily bullish. Um, I'd say the big thing that this looks like is kind of like what we've been talking about, where like if you look at last week in a vacuum, right, it would look like the market was recovering and getting, and getting better. But like when you get a GDP number like we got today, like that really overshadows like a week of good price action by a large amount. So like I when I look at what's happening today, the price action, what's happening with option sentiment numbers, like it really there's only two things that make sense. One is that there is more positive news imminently coming, and enough people know about it that it's keeping those numbers up, but not everyone. um you know or the argument is that it is going down, people are becoming more bearish, it's not necessarily immediately happening because there's not necessarily like an immediate event that's causing it in terms of the net option sentiment. Um and some of that is propped up by swing traders that might not have long, medium, even kind of long short term um faith in the markets. They are keeping their options bets on, which is keeping it elevated enough. But a lot of people are betting against it the same way they're shorting. Like those are the only two scenarios that make sense to me. It really could be either one based on what we've seen. But yeah, I'm definitely exercising caution around this.
The fact that you're saying there's some institutions that you've been speaking with that are like killing it and getting crazy returns, that would make me a little bit nervous because doesn't that mean de facto there's people on the other side of those trades that are probably having very negative returns or not performing well? Because it's a like winner take all type of thing, right? So like if they're killing it somewhere in the market, I don't know if it's retail or in other pockets, but someone's not performing well. Would that be correct?
Yeah, yeah, there's winners, there's winners and losers in every trade, in every yeah. So I mean, um I definitely think, I mean, I haven't that's the thing, like you don't necessarily hear about institutions doing poorly in the same way that you do. If you're doing well, you're bragging to everyone, you're sharing those results, right? Like when you hear about institutions doing poorly, it's normally only because they've blown up or they've reported their results. And it's about time to get some quarterly um results on funds, but also as a fund there are ways to like put your losses in certain ways, and especially if you're very diversified, you could recognize revenue of all that stuff. So sometimes you don't sometimes people can hide a bad year for a while if they think they're going to recover. But yeah, there's gonna be losers, and I mean also like I definitely think that retail um, I haven't seen, I haven't I see some people, like everybody always brags about the returns or this or that, but I would definitely say you never get people talking about how bad their returns are. It's the same kind of thing, except even more extreme with retail investors because they don't have to report. So some will never admit that they did poorly. But I've definitely noticed less bragging about returns online and more bickering, and that's normally a sign that the returns are not good.
So speaking of poor returns, I wanted to go through some stocks that have reported and had negative earnings reactions. We've seen, I think, a decent mix of reactions this year, but we just got a few that reacted pretty negatively. So Snapchat, First Solar, and Starbucks. I wanted to just bring all those companies up. They just reported last night. I think all were down as much as 10% at one point. I think I saw Starbucks was trying to fight back a little bit today. Maybe Snapchat is the most interesting one of the bunch, just the fact that it seems to have a decent like user base for the app, but they've just never been able to monetize it. The stock has done very poorly, and from the COVID era highs, it's just I think it's like 90% down still from them. So maybe start off with Snapchat, I guess.
It's an interesting contrast, right? Because Google reported good results in a similar, core business. Um, and that kind of makes me a little concerned about Meta because sometimes they do move together or assume, like I think you might say that Meta and Snapchat have even more similar businesses than Google and Meta do. But we definitely saw like a sympathy move um, from Google. And the one thing I was like, I was, you listed your stories and I was like, oh, we didn't talk about this. I mean, it's a good time to talk about the story that like some companies are not providing guidance in this environment, which is just very, very interesting. And honestly, like that's in thinking about if I want to hold Meta later, and we'll talk about this, but after Snapchat's results, I'm kind of leaning towards not holding, and I was leaning towards holding before. But like I am actually a little concerned that maybe they'll punt, right? And if you punt and you say you don't want to guide, that's kind of a way of saying like, oh, I don't think the results are going to be good, very good. But if others are punting on this, I'll take the out that way too. Um, but no, I mean, I mean, we'll talk about Meta in the story, but it's like it's a pretty interesting time for them. And what were the other?
Starbucks and First Solar were the other ones.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think First Solar is kind of fucked. Um, like they were not doing particularly well even before Trump took office, and the way that the energy policy is going under Trump, like I just don't have much faith in any solar company, especially at the multiples these solar companies trade at. I think it was chips that I called radioactive. I mean, we haven't really talked about solar, but I call solar like radioactive as well. But uh Starbucks, I mean, I don't know. I think like Starbucks is kind of a company that whenever I talk about it, I'm just like one of the things, and this might mean that I'm not the best to advise on like some conservative value stocks, but I could get excited about value if I really see the story there. Like, there's just nothing about Starbucks business that excites me. And things like, more and more rumbles of like unionization. I feel like they really like cannibalize their own businesses, and like we're starting to see more of like a uh buy local coffee kind of movement. And I only think that'll increase. I think people are becoming more and more frustrated with corporations. um so yeah, I don't love them. I mean, they might be, they're a stock that it's just like I could get myself over the hump if they became a really good value just like relative to their PE. I don't think they're there right now, but I just yeah, there's like for me to like a company, especially like to own it high conviction, and I don't often talk about this because a lot of the times it's just about the numbers and um but you know some of the research that I do over the weekend, especially like I'd say this is more true of my longs than my shorts. Some shorts I'm just like I don't really research the business in as much depth because I'm just like, I like the setup here. I like the price actions. Our signals look, um, positive in that way. And like I've actually found with shorts, like not to overthink it. Like longs, I find it super important. They're like market position because like I'm really betting on the longs, and then I'm protecting my downside with the shorts. Um, that's all to say, like one of the reasons like I didn't necessarily work out, but it might have. I'd be interested to check at the end of the week. I was really, really debating, actually harder than I normally do, um, this weekend, VRT, AppLovin, and Palantir. And it was a really, really close call. I could see good things for all of them. But at the end of the day, like AppLovin, which is doing like really bad today, I'm still worried about the shorters around that and feel like if the market like today is having a bad day, they would be punished. Palantir was just like, I mean, it's at a meteoric rise. Its PE is pretty high. Um, but it just is like it was moving up so far so fast, and I kind of looked at its like 52-week high relative to where it was, and it was worse in that category than Palantir and VRT. I tell that long story because like VRT is a cool industrial stock, supporting AI expansion. And at the end of the day, right? And I actually think it's that stock is at a good price relative to like where it was and what it is as a business. I say that because some of the stuff is, behind the scenes, and it served me pretty well to sometimes be like, okay, let me look at the business, where it's trading, like the market position, the perception around it, all of that. And that kind of thing really serves me well in close calls. And to come all the way back to Starbucks, I just don't feel that like there's nothing about that business that's exciting. There's nothing about that business that is really like interesting, or I see a whole lot of growth. They're kind of just like hanging on to what they have. I mean, I don't even know the last like new product that that maybe it's like a frappuccino here and there, but I feel like they're just doing the same strategy, maybe like cold brew or something. But there's not a lot of innovation there, and anyone that watches the stream knows how I feel about companies that don't innovate.
So just one follow-up on Snapchat. I'm looking at their entire history. They went public in 2017 at $24. So they are down 67% in their entire public history. At what point as a management team or even a CEO do you say, I just can't go at it alone anymore? And maybe Snapchat, instead of someone looking to acquire them, they look to get acquired by somebody. And we saw AppLovin try to get in the TikTok sweepstakes. Maybe they could be a Snapchat suitor, perhaps, or do you think any other big tech company that doesn't have that social media presence would be interested in Snapchat?
So there's acquisitions, and I think a lot of people get confused about this. There's acquisitions where the company is on the rise, and there's some like nice multiple paid above the share price to clear them out. And then there's deals where, like you're saying, the company just doesn't really seem to have answers. They feel like they're going nowhere, and they trade the deal gets done below the share price. Um, I don't think Snapchat would get acquired just because I think, given their business, they're kind of a below the share price acquisition. But I think they're, founders. I don't know much about their board, but I think they're like too proud and, ego driven to accept a below. Now, if the stock goes down another 50%, that's when you have proud people being like, well, I gotta get something. I don't know what their debt position is. That's probably an important factor in all of this. Um, but yeah, I just think that uh I just think it's just like it's a similar thing to Starbucks, just differently, where it's just like, I don't know how they're getting new customers, right? In a way that's gonna like get anyone that excited about the stock. They're just like it's kind of funny to say this, but they're just like old tech.
So we have a question from Ted asking about Trump's investing in America speech today. I think it's related to AI. He's mentioned coal a few times. Those names have been getting crushed. Was looking at AMR the other day.
In terms of what Trump's saying at this point, I've kind of made a decision to how I approach these things, which is just like, um, I don't really care what he says, but I'm going to look at two things. I'm going to look at like what the price response is, to what he says, because that's a good indication, right? If you notice that certain names get hit when he talks or on certain like subject matters, that could be something you turn into, profits, arbitrage, whatever, right? And the proof is in the pudding. You can trust that, but that's all I trust because I just don't. There's at this point, like, and we've seen it so many times, like we talked about it, like with um the tariff relief on electronics, and then there was going to be a semiconductor one, and like I started that week not even knowing if there were tariffs or what the situation was, just because I was reading so many confusing things. And I say all that to say, like, I think it's kind of a waste of time to try to interpret like what he says or what it means in any other way than like what the market says about him, about what he's saying, and what patterns you can start to draw from that information.
And speaking of Trump, I saw a list of the best performing stocks, the top three in his first 100 days. And there's a couple that are maybe surprising. So Palantir, obviously, I think that's no surprise there. But then the next two, Philip Morris and then Dollar General, top performing three stocks for the first 100 days of Trump. Any reactions to that? Are you with me? Like you would expect Palantir, but the other two are a little bit surprising.
Yeah, Palantir is like that, and I'm not really surprised about Dollar General. Like maybe at the begin, like when he got elected, Dollar General would have been surprising to me. Yes, but as the tariff stuff has started to go down, like consumer confidence is lowering. Consumers' confidence is lowering. Like yeah, a dollar, like the Dollar Generals of the world are doing well from that. But yeah, the Philip Morris thing is definitely. I mean, I'm pretty sure Philip Morris is consumer defensive too. So there's that, and maybe you just look at it like I don't consider it like Dollar General, where people are like buckling down. Um, are they going like are they going to go to the dollar store? Yes. But I mean, I guess you could look at that consumer defensive in a different way where like, people are addicted to cigarettes, and maybe like the people that were, not going to buy cigarettes anymore, like they've already left. And like the people that like through all like, the ridicule and closing of the public spaces, like my building is condos, and they just basically made a rule in the whole building um, that you can't smoke, which is pretty insane. Like, I get it, but like, especially if, like you own your house, it's a little weird. That is all to say, like, maybe that is a really good business to think of because, like, yeah, it's gotten hurt, but like the people that are still around and smoking cigarettes, they're holding out. They're gonna keep buying those cigarettes, and maybe if they're more stressed from all this, they're actually gonna be buying more cigarettes. Um, but yeah, I would say especially those three names together is very interesting because that's not necessarily what you'd expect. But yeah, one of them is about people anticipating a friendly environment for Palantir, and legitimate advances they're making. And yeah, the others are scary indications of what people think about is to come.
So maybe since we're just catching this Philip Morris move now, maybe we missed it. Its PE is around 30. It's surprising to see. It's a 265 billion market cap company. But there's another company similar to it, Altria, ticker MO. that is trading at about a 9 PE right now. Do you think that would be a decent catch up trade, maybe safety value play in this still uncertain environment? If both Philip Morris and Altria are in Prospero, Philip Morris has like a 77 net options. So I'm sure for like a cigarette company, that's probably pretty high in its history. Altria doesn't look as good, but there's a lot of value there. So what do you think?
So I haven't looked at this, but my advice always on like there's a lot of people that are like, oh, this is a comp. They both sell cigarettes or whatever. Like I'm pretty sure, I'm not positive that Philip Morris like sells a lot of other stuff, right? And if Altria doesn't, that might be part of the value disparity, right? And that's just like a warning. If like both companies sell cigarettes, but Philip Morris is like much more diversified, um you're not necessarily getting the same coverage, right? Because everything I just said about people being addicted to cigarettes, they buy regardless, like who knows, it could be another one of, I mean, you can research this, but I'm just saying, I should say who's, I don't know, like the extent that maybe it's another product that Philip Morris sells that people are like more excited about um than the cigarettes.
And the Prospero signals probably highlight something like that if there are, those, specific things about each business why Philip Morris would look better in the signals. So spinning now to Meta and Microsoft, the two major earnings we have off after the market today. Bringing them both up. Also, interesting Satya Nadella note that he mentioned. He was actually speaking with Mark Zuckerberg when he said this, but he talked about how about a third of the code being generated at Microsoft now is done using AI. So continuing to see the innovation there within their business. How are you feeling about both of these companies? We talked about Meta a little bit, but more in depth here heading into their earnings today.
Yeah, I mean, Meta releasing a standalone AI app, we talk about it all the time, like what Meta is doing outside of their, core business, I think is smart. Um, and that doesn't even get into like, the Vision Quest, and I think they're doing some, they kind of, came to market in a much better way than Apple did around that, which like that used to be what Apple, was a master in. But yeah, I've been really flip-flopping on it because I think Meta could get on that call, and even if they don't give guidance, get people really excited about their llama releases and their standalone app and their engagement on that. I think they were talking about like the engagement increasing um in a pretty substantial way last quarter. But the bad news today, like the way the market is reacting to it, I think I might want out.
Any feelings about Microsoft? I feel like they're in a weird spot. They seem to get a lot less like coverage than a lot of the other Mag 7 companies, and their stock has just been trading sideways for like a year now almost. So, any expectations for them?
Yeah, I mean, my um next fast company article is on this a little bit. I've been doing some work on it. But it's basically about um how, as I've researched it, I was researching like the OpenAI like $20,000 agent, and I was like, oh, I want to ask some of my AI friends how they felt about it. Um and like I'm actually convinced now that um AI, like the article I'm writing is actually called AI is coming AI isn't coming for your job, it's coming for your company. Um, and it's basically about like, yeah, I think a lot of these like leaner startups that tons of money are going into, I mean, a lot of them are going to fail, but the ones that succeed are going to be able to like price, operate everything so much leaner than Microsoft. I kind of like compared it to how like Japanese automakers started to use robots in the 70s, right? And how well that's worked out for them versus our car industry that was like bloated with pension payments and things like that. And then just like less efficient operating practices, more headcount, things like that. You got to pay the pensions and you got to pay more people to work and like accrue those pensions. So yeah, I'm a little down on it as a whole. I do still think that like OpenAI has a lot of things going for it, but in terms of like looking at these things on a long-term basis, I'm definitely starting to have my doubts um, about the viability.
That's really interesting. So you think that AI tech is kind of a looming threat for the Mag 7 versus like enhancing them? Like you think there's just going to be a lot of AI startups that are going to be so like they can perform something, whatever task, so specifically and so much better and more efficiently that like it's going to break up these companies, you think?
I think it could eat into their market cap, certainly, right? Because like that's what happened. Like Ford, GM, they're still around, right? But
Hmm.
like, more efficient companies came along and ate into their market cap, essentially, right? I don't think Microsoft's going out of business anytime soon. And in fact, I look at it like, kind of similar, like how I look at Ford or GM or whatever, where I think it's the kind of thing that it would get bailed out if it was like, because it's too big to fail. And the government doesn't like to get like let these like large companies fail, which I think is like super dumb. I think our car companies like absolutely should have should have just been let they should have let them die. Or at least go through bankruptcy and reorg in a more efficient way where you didn't have the same kind of liabilities. Um, but yeah, um, I think that it's definitely um, I think there's definitely an argument to be made that whatever these larger companies can do in AI, other smaller ones can do cheaper. And I don't think it's like general, right? I'm not saying, oh, like, you know, OpenAI is going to disappear because like some like super intelligence from some small startup is going to beat it. I don't think that, right? But I do think like if you're talking about like some smaller optimization problem that's very, specific, like operating like a sales funnel in the consumer packaged goods space, right? A company that's all that they do and they're funded to do that and they're very few employees, and as a result can have like a more specialized product that's way cheaper than like on the longer term scale than like a company can offer. I think that's I think that's a problem. And I think the way these Mag 7 companies are valued, a lot of them, um, is to win, right? Is to keep winning. And I think, you know, if you're thinking about AI, it just absolutely makes sense to me that it will be easier for these specialized companies that have much less, overhead, um, to at least build something comparable to what, these large AI giants can and at a fraction of the cost.
Relating to this topic, Mario's asking a question. What do you think about whispers of server sites being overbuilt and a lack of demand and the impact on players in that vertical? That would affect
Oh, I
VRT,
mean,
right? Aren't they in that space?
I've heard, yeah, I've heard that AI, like, I've heard the opposite, that like there isn't enough power in the world for AI, and that it's coming. I mean, I don't know. Um, yeah, I mean, I don't know what those reports are. Or like, I would have to know a lot more about like what it said um and who and where and that kind of thing. Um, but I could certainly see it being the case, but like we're hearing that demand hasn't slowed down from Amazon, from Nvidia. Um, so yeah, I don't know. It's kind of I view it similarly. Like we're in a totally different time, but I view it similarly to like the people that said like, oh, like AI is a bubble, it can't keep up this pace, like blah blah blah. I kind of think it's just like AI naysayers, and I'll believe it when I see it. I mean, also, just one other thing to mention, we keep talking about how much institutions are shorting the market, right? Maybe there's a decent amount, like some of the top shorted stocks, Nvidia, Tesla, I think GM is one of the other ones last time I looked. So if you're short Nvidia, what story do you want to get out there? Like, they're overbuilding servers. That's like the exact story you want to get out there. So especially in this market, in these bear markets, you have to take everything with a grain of salt, right? Because you don't know how real it is, or if it's some, shorter that wants to get that idea out there.
So SMCI last night pre-announced their earnings or their guidance, and they lowered both their EPS and their revenue. So maybe that kind of is building on what Mario was asking. I just see his comment right now. But what came to my mind firstly when I saw this SMCI pre-announcement was I think this is the first earnings that they've had since they like got all that financial audit stuff behind them. So is this the first quarter that they couldn't cook their books, and so that's affecting what they had to guide for? Or do you think no, it's
Yeah,
just
I
like
mean,
a
they do
weakness?
often pre-announce. SMCI is like kind of big on the pre-announcements, but typically when I've seen those pre-announcements, they've been good pre-announcements. I don't like in terms of SMCI specifically, like they're really like they really sell their cooling technology. I think the cooling technology is interesting, but you have heard whispers that there are alternatives to them as well, and maybe they're not like again, maybe this is the bears, the shorters coming out and just being like, well, their market position isn't as good as people originally thought. But you always have to run these kind of thought exercises, like if demand is just shrinking for their technology, they would never say that, right? They'd say server, they try to blame the market. They'd say, server demand is down, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, I like I'm saying, I don't think you can. I mean, I've called chips radioactive. So, like, where I stand on that. I wouldn't touch chips anyway. But, like, regardless of what I'm seeing here. But, like, what I will say is, like, in bear markets, like, you have to see the real numbers, right? I'm not going to believe that Nvidia's having demand problems until they say they're having demand problems and until that comes out in the forecasts, in their own company forecasts.
So probably the last topic we'll get to today before we turn it over, but it's actually about NVIDIA because Jensen Huang made comments on Monday in our stream. We reacted to Huawei announcing that they were going to develop and release this AI chip that was going to be competitive to NVIDIA. So Jensen Huang said China is not behind in artificial intelligence today, and that Huawei is one of the most formidable technology companies in the world. So do you take notice the fact that he felt the need to respond and kind of talk about this and give them credit and say it's a real kind of almost threat? It sounded like.
I think it's another Jensen Wong masterclass in how he plays the public, right? Because we've been talking about this, right? A new chip, like a chip that was previously allowed to be sold to China, like has been now limited and taken away, right? And the Trump administration talks a lot about like wanting to win this like trade war with China, right? If you keep taking away chips and Huawei is a legitimate competitor, all of a sudden, like Nvidia chips are a big export to China, right? If you're worried about the trade deficit and you're letting them catch up to your chip, that should be a scary proposition. So I totally think that's an attempt to manipulate the Trump administration to, at the very least, not ban any more chips. I mean, to me, that's an obvious one. But it is a legitimate risk, and we've talked about this. Like, I think that there's a lot of things about the trade imbalance. Like, I actually think there was a really funny, like the way I've ever seen it, like I've seen it put um was like on, I forget, it was like one of those like news, like comedy news shows, and it was like I have a trade imbalance with my barber, but it doesn't mean it needs to be fixed, right? I don't want to buy it. Like, I don't want to buy anything from him. Um, that's all to be said, where it's just like, we talk about this. I don't know what manufacturing, like, we're really going to get back to this country, especially quickly, right? But you know what could happen quickly? Like, less chips. Like, a major export of us could be, replaced by Huawei, or, continue to be limited by our own government to go there. And like, that's a good way to actually like increase the trade imbalance. So yeah, that's one of the reasons that I'm pretty worried, and have been, even before we started to have, these kind of problems with Nvidia and like chips in general. Like, if you want to hurt America in the trade war, like, Nvidia is one of the first places you look to hit them.
And the time has come, George. Time to make a decision on Meta. SPY is now at 44, QQQ at 41, so it doesn't get any easier. Still sitting there right on the bull bear line.
What's
So
going on with?
the market is
And
kind of slightly rising throughout the stream as of right now. Still red on the day though.
I mean, what I might actually do is like, I actually expect them to report a good quarter, so I might just like take the good quarter report, and then, sometimes they announce guidance right away. Um, I don't know. I'm gonna have to. I mean, Snapchat was just so bad, but Snapchat sucks. All right. We're just gonna do the rest of this portfolio. We can't miss it, so we can debate this ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'd love. What does the audience think? Does the audience think Meta as a whole?
Let us know as George does the switch over. He'll catch us right back here in a moment, everybody. Maybe the move is to long Meta, short Snapchat to hedge your bets if you're concerned. I'm sure if Meta has a bad earnings report and reacts negatively, Snapchat will probably continue going lower. But yes, I hope you all enjoyed the topics we got to today on the stream. Over 1,300 of you tuned in, so thank you all for watching us. Let me check on those likes on YouTube. Currently, we're at 10, so we hit double digits. If any of you are watching and haven't hit that like button yet, please do so. It really helps us out trying to grow the stream here. So, yay, we got another like right there. So thank you guys. Jill said I sold earlier today, but I don't want to be on the wrong side. Yes, it's things can happen and change quickly in this market here, right? I didn't actually look through. Let's see how some of our Mag 7 stocks are performing today with the slightly red market. Okay, let's take a look. So Apple is now popping up into the green, actually. Slightly green. Amazon still in the red. Meta down 1.7% on the day, but actually everything is kind of rising quickly right now as we're going into the close here. Microsoft still red, but rising. Tesla red. Google red. Everything moving upwards, though, right now. Let's take a look at NVIDIA. NVIDIA is still red, down 1%. Jill said Meta is climbing the last few minutes. Yeah, it looks like the market is kind of catching a bit of a bid here. Maybe it's trying to close the day green. The SPY is now only down 0.3%. QQQ down the same. And we started the stream today. What were they? They were both down like between 0.5% and 0.75%. So nice little close to the day, showing a tad bit of strength here. We did see the SPY and the QQQ net option sentiment from the beginning of the stream till the end of the stream today kind of rise a bit. So who knows? Maybe the market is expecting some good earnings report from Microsoft and Meta. And if there is, we'll probably get a nice green day tomorrow um, from those bit larger companies, right? Like if we got 5 to 10% green reactions, I'm sure the market would open up probably 1 or 2% in the green as well. So we'll just have to wait and see here. If it's your first time in the stream or you haven't caught a model portfolio update before, what we're about to do now is George is going to tune back in to the stream in the Prospero lab, and you get to see him make live swaps, longs and shorts. Get to see how the cookie is crumbled. So hang out with us for just a moment. We'll be right back in here. Now we just wait. We just wait for George. We didn't talk about Bitcoin at all today. Let me highlight them for a moment. They've been a topic of discussion, especially after our newsletter this past Sunday was highlighting how Bitcoin and wow, QQQ is now down only 0.1%. SPY the same. Are we going to finish today green? That would be wild. Bitcoin is still down 1% on the day. So Bitcoin is lagging the QQQ and the SPY today. George, the markets are really trying to finish green here. It looks like they're making a bid here.
Green?
Yeah, we are close.
God, I overreacted this morning, but like I just like, what the fuck is going on?
Trump comment?
What is this, like what is this big green candle? Like even Teradyne is up? God.
Microsoft is now green. Meta is still red heading into the close.
This is a very annoying day. All right. We can't waste all our time complaining about the market being confusing. All right, where's SPY QQQ?
SPY is at 39. QQQ is at 36 as of right now.
Not making this easy.
We're seeing a bit of a downtrend here. We did add to the bears and cut the bulls this morning by a fair margin, so we won't swing too far in either bull or bear direction with this update. QQQ, SPY, Dow Jones, now all green.
It's
Who let the algos loose, George?
I mean, but I guess I'm glad I got out of MicroStrategy because that's not necessarily doing well. Weird. Very, very weird. What's doing well today? Oh, why am I looking there? I'm just like looking at my individual tickers when I could be looking here.
Palantir's
God,
up 2%.
energy's getting. I mean, I guess like when we got that Trump question, I guess here's like when we're just like, oh, is there no sector?
Spotify's up 6%. You know, Take-Two, which has GTA coming out later this year, which we talked about a while ago, that's been a very strong stock. It's at all-time highs now. I hope people watched us talk about it like 8 months ago. Looks like it's time to look for energy bears and consumer discretionary. On the bull side, there looks like lots of decent options. Like consumer defensive, healthcare, and industrials.
Okay, let's see what we got here. Oh, a lot of changes here. It's 37, 45. I'd like balance that out a little bit already. Looks like a decent number of cuts here too. 13. All right. How many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. Almost May. This year is flying by. Do you know what the typical like is? Is May typically a good month in the market, Steven? I feel like you normally.
All I know is the saying sell in May and go away. I'm not sure about May. I know that means I think right after it, it gets a little weak usually.
All right, let's see what we got here. I did too many, but I did not. Okay. Let's see what we got here first, actually. All right. These look very close. All right. Healthcare. I feel like that was just in our bears.
SPY net options now at 48, QQQ at 46.
There's got to be some news coming. This is weird. We are going to diversify though. That's so weird. I feel like this was just in the bears. MS was just in the bears. This was just, yeah, some of these ones are really, they're playing both sides if you ask me. Oh yeah, look at this. I was like, no. Don't need to worry about finding energy options. All right, should we get both of these? Yeah, why not? But we draw the line there. Anything else stand out? What is this? That seems very risky. All right. I might add that. To the other ones. All right. Here we go. How small is that market cap? 90? I don't know if I've done that in a while.
QQQ finished 0.01 red on the day. SPY finished green.
What a time to be alive.
Do you think that the last day of a month trading has anything to do with like that little upward move we saw?
Yeah, it could. Yeah, it could be. Yeah, definitely. Closing shorts in profit, perhaps. All right, let's do this. Yep. And then I'm going to take a look at what's going on with Meta.
Microsoft is up 6% right now. 7%.
Why? Maybe they announced something with Meta? Okay. We held Meta. I'm gonna get it up on my. Oh, we're seeing a little green candling. Not much.
I feel like Microsoft must have had a really good cloud number because Amazon is up too right now, 2%, 2.5%.
Oh, I didn't know they were reporting earnings. I thought it was like an OpenAI announcement. Let's take a look at this stuff.
I don't know. That's quick for them to be out though. Usually they're like 405, 410. I feel like, not right away.
Oops. Oh, trying to get rid of both of them. All right, so we're not going to do Fox or DCI. What were the ones that we added today? We added SYNA and double 48s. All right, this might require more time. All right, I'm just going to do this later. Or maybe not. Let's just do it. Okay, so Fox and DCI are both wins, so let's get rid of them.
Microsoft beats on revenue and EPS. They reported 70.1 billion revenue versus 68.4 estimated. EPS $3.46 versus 322 estimated. Meta now up 5%.
5?
Yes.
All right, George, we did it. Oh, no. Spoke too soon. Damn, it is like, it's going crazy. Part of me wants to add a second position, but I'm too cautious. All right, so we got out of this. Ugh, damn it. We got out of MPWR. We would have had a win. Too quick with the exit. All right, so now we close 2 of those. So we basically have we closed this and this today. So we basically have 2 longs and 3 shorts. So we might want another. I mean, AMT.
Meta EPS of $6.43 beats 528 estimate. Revenue 42.3 billion beating 41.38 estimate.
All right, a double beat. I feel like AMT has served us well. But let's just get one more option with S&P Global. I mean, that's looking a little more solid. But financials have been so unreliable, and real estate has been more. Let's check it out. Oh, never mind. All right, I'm in. AMT. All right, and then the only other thing I'm thinking about is that vary. I don't love how small cap it is, but everything else looks great. 91 million. Yeah, this could blow up in my face. All right, any questions? I'm only doing that in the trading portfolio.
91 million. That's like super small.
I know.
No questions that I see right now.
All right. Awesome.
All right. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We will be back Monday, 11 a.m. See everybody then.
See ya.
Bye, guys.